Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life we waste our energy trying to convince the world that we are enough. We try to prove our worth through achievements, titles, or applause, thinking that validation from others will finally give us peace. But the truth is, proving yourself leaves you tired, empty, and constantly chasing approval that never lasts. Improvement, on the other hand, is quiet, gentle, and deeply personal. It happens inside you, not around you. It makes you grow instead of making you perform. When you choose to improve, to grow, not to impress, your entire inner world begins to shift in a very quiet but very powerful way. Most people spend years trying to look strong instead of becoming strong, trying to appear successful instead of building success step by step. But when you decide that your journey is not a performance, not a show, not a competition, you free yourself from the pressure of being perfect. You start understanding that growth is slow, sometimes invisible, sometimes frustrating, but it is always real. And the beauty of real growth is that it does not need an audience. It does not need applause. It only needs your commitment. This change in intention is what transforms everything. Because when you improve only to impress others, you focus on the surface. But when you improve to grow, you focus on the roots. And roots are what make a person unshakable. Choosing growth over impressing allows you to accept your flaws with honesty instead of hiding them out of fear. You begin to see mistakes not as proof of weakness, but as moments that guide you towards strength. You stop pretending to have everything figured out and start learning with an open mind. This mindset turns pain into lessons, failures into direction, and challenges into opportunities to build deeper resilience. When you are no longer trying to impress anyone, you stop rushing, you stop comparing, you stop forcing yourself into shapes that do not belong to you. You start giving yourself permission to move at your own pace, to breathe, to reflect, and to show up as who you really are. And authenticity is the soil where true growth takes root. Improving to grow also means that you become consistent. Even on days when no one is watching, you do the work when it is boring, when it is slow, when it is repetitive. You focus on habits instead of highlights. You value progress over perfection, and one day you look back and realize that the quiet steps you took every day built something stronger than any applause ever could. This kind of improvement makes you grounded. It makes you confident in a way that performance never can, because your confidence comes from who you are becoming, not from who people think you are. It comes from your effort, your discipline, your honesty, your courage, and when confidence grows from within, it does not disappear when the crowd goes silent. When you improve only to impress, your identity becomes fragile, because it depends on opinions, trends, and approval. But when you improve to grow, your identity becomes steady. You are no longer controlled by what people think, say, or expect. Your worth becomes independent. Your direction becomes clear. Your focus becomes sharp. And with time you learn that real joy comes from becoming better, not from being liked. Real peace comes from progress, not from praise. Real strength comes from inner work, not outer validation. Growth also makes you kinder to yourself. It teaches you that you do not need to win every day. You just need to show up. You begin to respect your journey, even the difficult parts, because you know they are shaping you into someone wiser. You stop judging yourself harshly and start supporting yourself like someone you truly care about. And that self-support becomes one of the greatest sources of power in your life. When the goal is to grow, you start choosing things that nourish you instead of things that impress others. You choose authenticity over image, effort over ego, long-term progress over short-term attention. You choose to build a life that feels right, not a life that only looks right. And slowly you realize that the world you were trying to impress was never as important as the person you were becoming within yourself. When you choose to focus on progress, not applause, something inside you becomes calmer and more grounded. You stop living like a performer on a stage and start living like a learner on a journey. Applause is loud, temporary, and unpredictable, but progress is quiet, steady, and entirely in your control. Applause comes from others, but progress comes from you, and the day you realize this difference, you stop chasing noise and start building a foundation. You begin to understand that the small steps you take in silence are far more important than the loud recognition the world gives you once in a while. Applause can make you feel good for a moment, but progress makes you grow for a lifetime. When your focus shifts to progress, you stop expecting perfection from yourself. You stop fearing mistakes. Instead, you start celebrating every small improvement, every new habit, every lesson, every attempt, even the ones that don't look impressive. You learn to appreciate the value of effort because you are no longer working to show something to others. You are working to strengthen something within yourself. You understand that real change happens slowly, almost quietly, and that growth rarely looks glamorous in the beginning. It looks like discipline. It looks like patience. It looks like failing, learning, trying again. And none of those things attract applause, but they build you from the inside. Focusing on progress also protects your mental peace. When you chase applause, you tie your happiness to reactions you cannot control. One day people praise you and you feel proud. Another day they ignore you and you feel worthless. But when your goal is progress, your emotions don't rise and fall with public approval. You become stable, consistent, and centered. You measure yourself only against who you were yesterday, not against who people want you to be today. This emotional independence is powerful because it keeps you moving forward even when no one notices your effort. It teaches you discipline even on quiet days. It keeps you committed even when the journey feels slow. Another beautiful part of choosing progress over applause is that you begin to value authenticity. You no longer pretend to be better than you are just to impress someone. You no longer fear showing your struggles because you know struggles are part of growth. You start speaking honestly, living honestly, and improving honestly. And that honesty becomes a mirror through which you can truly see where you need to grow. Applause hides your weaknesses, but progress reveals them so you can transform them. That's why progress leads to stronger, deeper, and more meaningful growth. When you focus on progress, you also learn to trust the process. You stop rushing for quick results and start respecting the time it takes to build something real. You begin to understand that the best achievements are not the ones that come fast or look flashy, but the ones that come from consistency, effort, and patience. You learn that growth is not a moment. It is a journey. It is not about being the best. It is about becoming better, and this understanding saves you from disappointment because you no longer feel behind. You simply feel in progress. Choosing progress also strengthens your relationship with yourself. You start appreciating your effort even when nobody sees it. You start giving yourself credit even when the results are still invisible. You start believing in your journey even when the world is silent about it. And that belief becomes a source of confidence that cannot be taken away by lack of applause. When you know you are growing, you no longer need anyone to confirm it. Little by little, you build resilience. You handle setbacks more wisely because you know they are part of evolution. You handle criticism more calmly because your worth is not tied to approval. You handle challenges with more courage because you trust your ability to improve through them. And with every step forward, no matter how small, you feel yourself becoming stronger, wiser, and more aligned with who you want to be. When you understand that your journey is personal, not a performance, a sense of freedom starts to bloom inside. You begin to realize that life is not a stage where you must impress an audience, but a path that you must walk with honesty, courage, and patience. Most people live as if someone is constantly watching them, judging them, evaluating their every move. They shape their lives based on approval, expectations, and social pressure. But when you detach yourself from this invisible audience, when you finally allow yourself to walk your path without performing for anyone, you discover a deeper, more peaceful rhythm to your existence. You stop living for the world and start living for your own growth, your own clarity, and your own truth. A personal journey means that your progress will not always make sense to others. Sometimes you will grow in silence, and sometimes you will heal in ways no one notices. Sometimes you will start over when people think you should be finishing, and sometimes you will slow down when others expect you to move fast. And that is perfectly okay. A personal journey is not meant to match anyone's timeline or expectations. It is meant to match your soul's needs, your heart's pace, and your mind's capacity. Once you embrace this, the pressure to impress people weakens. You start respecting your own way of growing, even if it is slow, even if it is messy, even if it is different. You learn to accept your own rhythm without shame. When you stop treating life like a performance, genuine self-awareness begins to develop. You start noticing things about yourself that you ignored while you were busy proving, pretending, or pleasing. You see your habits, your triggers, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your patterns with clearer eyes. This self-awareness becomes your guide. It helps you understand what you need to work on without judging yourself. It helps you make decisions that align with your purpose, instead of decisions that look impressive from the outside. And slowly you become more honest with yourself because you no longer fear that honesty will make you appear imperfect. You start valuing growth over presentation. A personal journey also teaches you patience with yourself. When you are not performing, you allow yourself to make mistakes without feeling humiliated. You allow yourself to rest without feeling guilty. You allow yourself to start again without feeling embarrassed. You understand that setbacks are not failures, they are chapters. Lessons are not signs of weakness, they are signs of becoming wiser. You stop rushing your healing, your learning, or your progress just to keep up with someone else's expectations. Instead, you give yourself space to evolve naturally, gently, and consistently. When you stop performing, your relationships change too. You no longer attract people who only admire your image. You attract people who appreciate your authenticity. You stop seeking validation from those who misunderstand your journey, and you begin valuing the presence of those who support your growth quietly, without conditions. You learn that genuine connections are built on truth, not on performance. People who truly care for you do not need a perfect version of you. They need a real one. And that realness becomes a source of comfort rather than fear. Viewing your life as a personal journey also makes you stronger emotionally. You stop taking criticism personally because you recognize that others are commenting on a path they do not fully understand. You stop comparing your milestones with others because you know that every journey has different lessons, different seasons, and different timing. You no longer feel threatened by someone else's success because their path is not your path. Their light does not dim yours. Their pace does not define yours. Their achievements do not limit yours. And as you continue walking your own journey, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You trust your decisions, your instincts, your direction. You trust that even when the path feels unclear, it is still leading you somewhere meaningful. You trust that growth does not need to be seen to be real. You trust that your journey is unfolding exactly the way it is meant to, and that the only person you truly need to align with is the person you are becoming along the way. When you decide to compete with your past self and not with others, you free yourself from one of the biggest sources of stress and insecurity. Comparison steals joy and blinds you to your own progress. But self-comparison builds clarity, confidence, and genuine growth. Most people waste their energy trying to outrun others, forgetting that every person's path, timing, and challenges are different. But the moment you start measuring yourself only against the person you were yesterday, everything changes. You stop feeling behind and start feeling in motion. You stop feeling pressured and start feeling focused. You stop chasing someone else's life and start improving your own. Competing with your past self means you learn to notice small improvements. You celebrate the days you are a little more disciplined, a little more patient, a little more honest, a little more committed. And these small shifts, even when they are invisible to others, build a strong internal foundation. You begin to understand that growth is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is gentle, subtle, almost silent. But these quiet improvements compound, and with time they turn into strength that no one can take away. When you compare yourself with others, you look outward in search of validation. When you compare yourself with your past self, you look inward and discover your own potential. This mindset also makes your journey healthier. Instead of feeling jealous when others succeed, you feel inspired. Instead of feeling discouraged when someone reaches a milestone faster, you remind yourself that your journey has its own pace. You stop asking, why am I not where they are, and start asking, have I improved from where I was? And this question brings peace. It brings direction. It brings purpose because it turns your attention back to the only thing you can control, your own growth. Competing with others is endless and exhausting, but competing with your past self is empowering and sustainable. You also develop a deeper sense of accountability. When you stop blaming circumstances or people and begin to focus on your own progress, you take ownership of your actions. You become more responsible with your time, your habits, your thoughts, and your choices. You stop making excuses because you know that the only competitor you have is the version of you from yesterday. This makes you disciplined without becoming harsh on yourself. It makes you motivated without becoming anxious. It makes you focused without becoming obsessed. You start working with intention instead of working for attention. Competing with your past self teaches you resilience. When you face setbacks, instead of feeling like a failure compared to others, you ask yourself what you can learn, how you can grow, and what the experience is teaching you. You start treating challenges as stepping stones instead of obstacles. You see yourself evolving through every difficulty, and that evolution becomes more important than perfection. You realize that growth never comes from winning every time. It comes from improving each time. This mindset transforms your relationship with time. You stop rushing. You stop comparing timelines. You understand that progress does not have a deadline. You allow yourself to grow at your own pace, knowing that consistency matters more than speed. Every day becomes an opportunity to be 1% better, to learn something new, to let go of something old, to refine your character, to strengthen your habits. And slowly, without forcing it, you begin to see a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, calmer, and more aligned with the person you want to be. As you keep competing with your past self, something beautiful happens. You become proud of your own journey. You look back and see how far you've come, not in comparison to others, but in comparison to the person you once were. You recognize your progress, your healing, your effort, your growth. And that recognition gives you confidence that no applause, no comparison, and no validation could ever give. When confidence grows from within, it becomes a quiet and unshakable force that does not depend on how others see you or what they think of you. It is not loud, it is not boastful, and it does not need to be displayed. Confidence that comes from inner growth is built slowly like a foundation that gets stronger with every experience, every lesson, and every step you take toward becoming your true self. Many people chase confidence by trying to appear successful, talented, or impressive, but this type of confidence fades as soon as the external applause fades. True confidence, the kind that stays with you even on your worst days, is built internally through self-awareness, discipline, resilience, and growth. Inner confidence begins when you stop trying to meet the expectations of others and start meeting the expectations you set for yourself. You begin to trust your decisions not because someone approves of them, but because you understand why you made them. You begin to rely on your strength, not because someone praised it, but because you have tested it through challenges and discomfort. You begin to value your abilities not because they are better than someone else's, but because they are growing, evolving, and improving with time. This mindset gives you a deeper sense of security because your confidence is no longer at the mercy of opinions, comparisons, or criticism. It becomes rooted in who you are, not in how you are perceived. When confidence grows from within, you become more honest with yourself. You stop overestimating your strengths to impress people, and you stop hiding your weaknesses out of fear. Instead, you acknowledge both with clarity. You understand what you need to improve, and you pursue that improvement with patience. You understand what you are good at, and you use those strengths with intention rather than ego. This honesty builds a more stable sense of identity because you are no longer pretending to be someone you are not. The more honest you become with yourself, the more confident you become in your ability to grow into the person you want to be. Another important part of internal confidence is resilience. When confidence depends on external approval, any failure or criticism can break you. But when confidence is built from within, failure becomes a teacher instead of a threat. You no longer feel the need to run away from mistakes because you understand they are part of the process. You approach challenges with a stronger mindset, knowing that every difficulty you face makes you more capable. This type of confidence is quiet but powerful. It gives you the ability to keep moving forward even when things go wrong because your belief in yourself is not borrowed from anyone else. It is earned through your own journey. Inner confidence also changes the way you communicate and carry yourself. You no longer feel the need to speak loudly to be heard or to dominate conversations to feel important. You speak with calmness because you know your voice has value. You show kindness because you are not insecure. You show humility because you are not trying to prove anything. People with internal confidence don't need to shine brighter than others. They shine naturally because their energy is grounded, their presence is steady, and their character is genuine. This quiet confidence draws people toward you without any effort, because authenticity is far more magnetic than performance. When confidence grows from within, you also become more independent emotionally. You no longer depend on praise to feel proud, yourself, or on attention to feel valuable. You learn to validate your own efforts, to recognize your own progress, and to appreciate your own growth. This emotional independence protects your peace because no one has the power to control how you feel about yourself. You stop chasing approval and start nurturing self-respect. You start setting boundaries without guilt. You start choosing what is right for you rather than what looks good to others. Little by little, this inner confidence becomes your anchor. It keeps you steady in chaos, grounded in uncertainty, and focused in distraction. It helps you walk through life with clarity, purpose, and strength because you trust yourself deeply. And when you trust yourself, you no longer fear the journey, the challenges, or the judgments that come along the way. When you realize that proving yourself drains your energy while improving yourself restores it, your entire approach to life begins to shift in a healthier, more peaceful direction. Proving yourself is exhausting because it pulls you into a cycle of comparison, pressure, and constant performance. You start living for the eyes of others, shaping your actions around what will look impressive rather than what will make you grow. This type of living forces you to wear masks, hide your struggles, and stretch yourself beyond your emotional capacity just to maintain an image that was never real to begin with. The more you try to prove, the more you lose touch with who you truly are, and the energy you spend keeping up appearances leaves little room for genuine growth. Improving yourself, in contrast, feels like breathing again. It gives you space to be human. It gives you space to learn. It gives you space to evolve without judgment. When you shift your focus from improving to improving, you start prioritizing progress over perfection. You allow yourself to grow at your own pace instead of rushing to meet external expectations. You begin to invest your energy into habits, skills, and mindsets that actually strengthen you from within. This investment nourishes you instead of draining you. It fills you with purpose instead of pressure, clarity instead of confusion, and peace instead of anxiety. Improvement becomes a journey that supports your well-being rather than taking away from it. Proving yourself drains you because it depends on external validation. You constantly look outside for approval, waiting for someone to tell you that you are enough. But external validation is unpredictable. Sometimes people notice your effort, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they praise you, sometimes they ignore you. When your worth depends on their reaction, your emotional state becomes unstable. You rise with praise and fall with silence. You feel powerful one moment and insecure the next. This instability creates stress that slowly wears down your energy, your confidence, and your motivation. Improving yourself restores your energy because it brings your power back to you. When your focus is on who you are becoming, you no longer attach your worth to opinions. You measure your success by your own standards, not by applause. You celebrate your growth, even if no one sees it. This internal measurement gives you a stable emotional foundation. Your energy is no longer scattered by the mood, judgment, or expectations of others. Instead, it is directed toward growth. And consistent growth, even in small steps, fills you with satisfaction that cannot be taken away. Proving yourself also drains your energy because it keeps you in a performance mindset. You feel pressured to always look strong, always act confident, always appear perfect. This type of pretending is tiring. It forces you to suppress your emotions, hide your weaknesses, and push through moments when you actually need rest. Over time, this leads to burnout, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. You begin to feel disconnected from yourself because you are living for a role rather than living for your truth. Improving yourself restores your energy because it encourages honesty. You become more aware of your own needs, limits, and goals. You allow yourself to make mistakes, take breaks, and start again when necessary. Improvement teaches you to be gentle with yourself without becoming lazy and disciplined without becoming harsh. You learn to grow from a place of self-respect rather than self-pressure. This balanced mindset protects your energy, allowing you to sustain your progress without breaking yourself in the process. Another reason proving yourself is draining is because it has no finish line. No matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone doing more, someone going faster, someone appearing better. Chasing approval becomes an endless race that leaves you tired and never satisfied. Improving yourself restores your energy because it has a clear and meaningful direction. You are not racing others, you are rising from within. Every bit of progress strengthens you, every lesson expands you, every challenge shapes you, and this journey feeds your spirit. Instead of exhausting it. When you let your actions speak silently, you begin to understand the power of quiet consistency. The world today is full of noise, full of people trying to announce their worth, explain their greatness, or prove their abilities through words. But real strength rarely needs to be declared, real commitment rarely needs to be advertised, real growth rarely needs to be shouted. When your actions carry the message, it becomes louder, clearer, and more impactful than any words could ever be. Silence does not mean weakness. Silence means focus. Silence means maturity. Silence means you trust the journey enough that you no longer feel the need to narrate every step of it. Letting your actions speak silently teaches you discipline. It forces you to show up consistently, even when no one is watching, even when no one is applauding, and even when no one understands what you are building. You stop seeking validation for every effort because you begin to value the effort itself. You focus on the work, not on the recognition. You invest your energy in doing, not in displaying. And slowly your actions begin to build a story that words never could. People start noticing your progress not because you talked about it, but because you lived it. They see the results, the changes, the growth, and the transformation that happened quietly, steadily, and authentically. Choosing silent action over loud declarations also protects you from unnecessary pressure. When you talk too much about your plans or goals, you create expectations that may weigh you down. You start feeling watched. You start feeling judged. You start feeling obligated to perform instead of genuinely grow. But when you move quietly, you give yourself the freedom to evolve without the burden of proving anything to anyone. You can change directions, experiment, fail, learn, and adjust without feeling embarrassed. You can take your time. You can build in peace. You can focus fully on the process instead of the audience. Letting your actions speak silently also helps you build character. It teaches you humility